weather, right? Change everything. So, welcome everyone to this second edition of UX Beer 25 in Brussels, because there was already plenty of edition in Antwerp before, but and thank you CBTW to welcoming us here to host those nice talks. So let's start. So just a bit of history first. So we are UX Belgium. It was founded 14 years ago in Antwerpen. It was created by people as you, I guess, passionate by UX and that wanted to challenge each other, gaining some insight and also create a community. Now we can proudly say that we are more than 4,000 members and we are one of the largest UX group in Europe. So that's something to be proud of. So even if due to edition, the Bristol chapters edition and the Assault one were created, but the main hub will stay Antwerpen. So they host each last Tuesday of the month the same kind of events. Here in Brussels is each second Tuesday of each quarter. And if you have time or if you're interested to, the next event is next week, next Wednesday in Hasselt. So by the way, my name is Anaïs. Hello, with all my nice colleagues, volunteers, we are making those events possible, and we are always looking for new people to join. So if you want to help us too inside this UX Belgium community, please reach out to us. We're all wearing those tags, and so you can just come and say hi and see how we can find a job for you. For like, it's not paid, of course, but we will have plenty of things to give you to do. So please reach out. And we are also always looking for hosts and sponsors, as CBTW is doing tonight. So if you are working in an agency, or yes, if you have a business that doing UX-related services, you can also reach out to us for that. And I think it's a great opportunity to gather people, UX people around, and to gain visibility. And if during the last days or weeks you did a talk within your agency and you think it could be valuable, please reach out to us, because we are always looking for speakers too. So don't be shy, even if you're a junior profile and you think you really have something to say, to share around the community. Please have this stage, and usually the public of the UX beers are quite nice and welcoming, so I think it's the best way to practice, because it's something we have to do a lot as UXers, presenting, sometimes more than designing, plus the meeting, but yeah. So all the events are listed on the Meetup channel, but we are also present on Slack, so you can just join us there too. We have dedicated channel about UX topics. We are also have channels for job posting, so you will find plenty of support here too. And our host of today is CBTW, means community better the word, if I'm right. And I will leave the floor to Alex. I think he will do a better job than me to present his company.
Thank you, Anaïs. And on behalf of CBTW, I would like to welcome you all here at our office. We're not here in this room, of course. We're upstairs on the 5th. If you want to see our office, just tell us afterwards. We'll be happy to show you. It's a bit better looking than this room. Welcome, everyone. I'm Alexander. I'm the head of product design at CBTW. Here in Belgium, we have around 35 UX UI designers, conversation designers, service designers, and so on. In all the world, we have over 150. So we're a global company, but based in Belgium. We were really founded here in the city of Brussels. And so we're very happy to open our doors to welcome you all. We have foreseen a very nice program for you today. with some very interesting speakers. One is a colleague from us, one is an old colleague from us, the other one will be a new colleague of us. About that, if you want to become a colleague, we're always looking for talented people. You can scan the QR code you see on the posters, or you can talk to one of our recruiters. It's a quick sales pitch, I'm sorry. Maybe the recruiters can raise their hand very quickly. Voila, that way you know where to who to find. If you're looking for a partner that can help you build user-centric digital products, feel free to talk to one of us as well, or to scan the other QR code. But most of all, have a very nice evening, I would say. I think this is about networking and getting to know the UX UI community, and we're very happy that we can help building that community in Belgium. So welcome and have a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you for having us tonight. It's really a pleasure. I'm going to continue the marketing speech too, because we have amazing sponsors supporting us since a long time, creative skills. So if you're also looking for a job in the creative sector in Belgium, you can see what they are listing on their website. And also, since the beginning, Ariad accompanies us to make those events possible. So thank you, Ariad. It's a group of talented recruiters that also will help you to navigate between different UX jobs. So that's for us, our sponsors. And now I will welcome tonight Nino and Thomas that we will learn how to slay conversion. It's really catchy speaker conference name. I really like it. And we will do a small break of 15 minutes. And so please enjoy. The drinks are here. Enjoy this time for networking. And then we will have the last talk of Ricardo about how can we make user-centric design in large-scale enterprise. Thank you very much. And Ninon and Thomas, you can have the floor. You have
just need to do a quick setup.
For sure.
Okay.
Other way around.
Oops. You wanna?
No, I don't know how to do this.
There it is.
If you do presenter view.
No, not that one.
Yeah. Is the second screen that you can bring the presentation to, or?
No.
What you can do is you can excuses for the
Yeah.
what you can do is have a display and have to
Yeah, two computers.
That's fine. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, we can just display on here directly. Yeah. You okay? Yeah, you want to
Okay,
do?
you're-
Go
Well,
ahead. Yeah.
What doesn't matter, we can do both.
oh yeah. Let's see, yeah. Yeah, maybe also they can also.
Yeah, it's in display, right? To change the main screen.
Go ahead.
No, I need to know where.
We can go back.
Okay,
Wait.
okay.
Yeah, so it's just a second screen.
Display.
Yeah.
Display and then HDMI.
No, if you do.
Display,
Yeah.
Extended display.
Yeah.
And so now we take that one back.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, yeah, so we're gonna.
That's the main presentation there.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the other one that we need.
I can add it
Okay,
too.
so then we just like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, like it all for
No,
human,
the other way around.
Yeah.
all for human ingenuity.
Yeah, we're good. You're managed. Okay.
You can see how
Simon,
messy
you
my
can-
desktop is.
You can stop it.
Okay, we're gonna start. It's fixed.
Okay. Yeah.
this. And then this one you can put it in, yeah. All right.
Okay. Oh.
There we are.
Okay, finally we got it. We got to it. Okay. Again, so thanks for the introduction, everyone, and thanks again for hosting us and inviting us, actually. Yeah, I'm Thomas, and joined with Ninon. Of course, some of you probably already know Ninon. Today we're going to be taking you on a journey. It's going to be a journey about our quest, and this is it's actually a quest, not a question. Just that was my error. So a quest to maximize every click and to boost conversion rate in the Proximus checkout flows. A disclaimer: there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows. There's as much desperation as there is joy. So bear with us because we're reliving it. It's probably for you the first time. So there might be a few tears. So just you might get emotional. So just be sure that Okay. So once upon a time, there were two UX UI designers. Both actually quite a few similarities. No.
A little bit.
Yeah. So we're both non-Belgian, as you can probably hear from my accent. I'm a weird hybrid of things. We both have a degree in anthropology. Strange enough, one of the first people I've met actually within the field of UX as well. But one of the differences that we have is that we work in slightly different teams at Proximus. And I've also forgot to mention that we've both been working at Proximus for pretty 3.5 years.
Something like this,
3.5 years. Anyway. We work in slightly different teams. So where I work in what's called a value proposition team, where the main goal is to sort of grow our residential and small enterprise market by offering personalized offers for new and existing customers. Ninon's scope is a little bit different.
Yeah, so I come from a team called OmniSales, and we handle basically all of our sales channels. So it's physical, of course, it's digital as well. So yeah, of course, the focus will be a lot more digital. And as I said, we're very technical, so we have devs, we have analysts, we have all the types of experts that you can imagine that do more technical stuff. That's us. So we're really focused on everything that's a bit mobile first, reusable journeys, things are templatized. And I mentioned that we work on different channels, but we work for different brands as well. So Scarlett, for instance, we do. And different segments. So customers like you and I are mostly residential customers, but also for small enterprises. And in that regard, Thomas was detached to us to represent the interest of his team while we were working on our big projects. Now, I've been talking a lot about us, but what do? Full disclaimer, this presentation was made for Content Square, so you'll see Content Square heavily featured. This is not a plug. But we are... But this is a presentation about conversion, of course. That means analytics. And actually, in our daily life, we look at analytics pretty much every day. So we have two main tools, Adobe and Content Square. What do we use them for? Well, every time we put a design in production, which happens quite a lot, we try to see, okay, what's the impact of it? Is it increasing any numbers that we're looking at? Is it impacting our conversion rate, for instance? So it's something that, we do, I think, very regularly. Of course, we're not data experts. We have our own data experts. They make really beautiful reports, quite deep dive as well. But for us, we like to have a bit of a sanity check here and there.
Complex sometimes.
Yeah, complex sometimes.
But they're great.
Okay, now, what do we actually work on? So we work on our sales flows. So at this point in our story, we had redesigned, redeveloped, and also put in production most of our sales flows. So it means today, if you decide to become a Proximus customer for mobile, internet, or pack, you will go through a flow that we have actually designed. Now, what does it look like, you may wonder. Here's a preview. I invite you to all become customers in case you want the full design. Shameless plug. Also good for our numbers, so I see our lead was like, yeah, good job. I want to raise. So you might arrive on a landing page. So we will represent the main USPs, for instance, fastest internet in Belgium. So it can be for a pack, for an internet. And then if you decide to go to the next step, you might actually go to more personalization, more configuration. Now let's say you are convinced and you decide to order. You will arrive on the identification step. So you probably know this, you see it quite a lot. This is actually a legal requirement that protects you and us from fraud. so something very important. And then you will move on to the checkout where you can finalize your order. Now, and we'll finish up with the boring stuff and go to the meat of the topic. But of course, we talk about sales, quite important. Proximus, we're a sell company, so a lot of people are really interested in what we're doing and how we are actually impacting our sales. So we have two, let's say, touch points, a weekly one where everyone impacting sales actually gathers together and sees, okay, what were the results of last week, which campaigns are we doing, is it working or not, deep dives again from our data experts. And then once a month, we do a review on our A/B test backlog and we see what we're going to put in production.
Yeah, and so with that in mind, we had started redesigning the different flows. We'd put some into production. The deployment was going pretty well. We received some feedback from our trusted data analyst, as you can see on the screen here, with a message that would actually change our luck. And this is a bit where the presentation is going.
Okay, we noticed the click-through rate is the lowest on the identification step of the checkout.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, Nino already went a bit into the journey, but the identification step, so we have the upper funnel here where you're really doing like the discovery, the personalization. The identification step is really kind of like the link between the upper funnel and the lower funnel. You can kind of think of it as like the drawbridge between the lands and a castle, right? So the land being outside and scary place, and then the castle becoming a Proximus customer, of course. And the thing is, this step actually is right splat bang in the middle of the end-to-end journey, right? And as Nino said again, it's a legal requirement. We need to know who is ordering. It's both protecting Proximus, but also the customer. And so that's exactly where the problem was lying. So we couldn't, of course, just remove the step. We needed to go further into it. So we went back to our team with the message from our data analyst, and of course, everyone decided to act immediately.
Nino and Thomas, your mission is to dive deeper into the identification step and suggest design updates with minimum technical impact.
So something we've never heard before, right? Okay, and so again, this is a bit how the story goes, and you can see we did like a little journey here. There are ups and downs, as I said, and again, this is really about our quest to maximize every click and improve conversion in the newly designed Proximus checkout flow.
Act 1, Houston, we have a problem.
Okay, so how did we approach this challenge? Well, again, thanks to our collaborative way of working with our data analysts, we decided to do a kind of deep dive into this step, right? So you can see it here. You have 3 different identification methods. So this is really a part of the whole method there, the whole step, sorry, in the checkout flow. So what did our analysis show us? Well, it showed pretty terrible performance when it came to this step. So one thing we didn't mention was actually this step. Again, visualize that journey. Remember where it is. It's right in the middle of the full end-to-end journey. It's really, again, that step. It's the bridge between the upper funnel and the lower funnel. And actually, this step was managed by an external team. So a team actually in Luxembourg. Actually, one of the most beautiful things about this step was that all of this information was contained within an iframe. So I don't know if anyone knows what an iframe is, but if you don't know what an iframe is, it's basically a screen within a screen, right? So you have the screen, and then you have the screen. If you're familiar with iframes, what you know is that, they really perform really badly. Especially when it comes to loading times, but also just performance. You need to get the data from one server, push it to the front end, ensure that it's being displayed correctly on whatever device the user is using at that time. Really poor performance, essentially. Yeah, and obviously no surprise, not particularly user-friendly, right? If you have a frame within a frame, depending on the device that you're using, yeah, that frame may not be dynamic, it may not actually fit to the device. And actually that's what we found when we did user testing with the step that was in production, that and actually in many cases, especially on mobile, that some of the methods even were actually not even visible within the iframe, right? And what I also forgot to mention was that within this iframe, and you can't see it here, that actually the main call to action was below here, right? So if you're on a mobile device, you can't see the identification methods, you can't see the main call to action, you're not going forward, right? So all in all, a bit of a mess there. But again, also when it comes to data, right? So this step is managed by an external team. There's actually no way for us to really have any idea about like what the user is really doing here, right? We are not able to integrate any of the tools that we use, so Content Square, Adobe, or really limited amount, get really limited amount of data, sorry, from this. So it made it impossible to really analyze any behavior and actually address this problem. So again, all in all, a bit of a mess. But what we did find from our analysis, that actually those users that chose It's Me as their identification methods were actually, there was a higher rate of conversion. So if It's Me was chosen as their identification method, the conversion rate was high. So we saw that about 80% more or less were using It's Me as their identification method. Who uses It's Me here? Who has already used it before? Okay. Pretty much everyone. Okay. Okay, so we went back to our team, we went back to our stakeholders. Again, with that analysis, went deep dive into it. And what we decided based on that, and again, this is also a bit linked to one of the core values of the redesign, was the kind of 80-20% principle. So designing for the 80%. With that analysis, we decided, okay, let's take a step back. Let's keep what we have already. And actually try something completely radical. So we decided to do an A/B test with 2 different versions. We, again, knew that we're converting better when the It's Me method is chosen. Yeah, we want to actually really put that into production and see if that's possible. So we decided to implement an A/B test, version A being the regular one, the full identification, the beautiful iframe, and the B one with the It's Me only method. So a question to you, the audience. Do you think the It's Me only version converted better? Show of hands that thinks it did. Okay. Show of hands thinks it, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Wow, thank you guys. So much stress.
That's a really, yeah, okay. Well, no, yeah, it didn't. Well, kinda, but the data was a bit murky, right? So we went to our trusted Adobe Analytics because this is, you know, we wanted to compare not apples,
rates.
yeah, conversion rate, of course, but you know, wanted to compare the same kind of thing. So we used the same dashboard, the same methods so we could have on both versions, right? So we went to Adobe Analytics and took the data from there. And what did we find? Well, we saw a slightly higher conversion rate on It's Me for users that used mobile, right? But we saw slightly worse performance on users that were using a desktop and going with the It's Me only version. So the hypothesis here is that, okay, if you've ever used It's Me before, and it seems like quite a lot of you have, of course, you need your device, you need your smartphone to identify. So you need to go to the app, you need to do this. So much easier, obviously more convenient if you're already using a mobile device. But of course, if you're using a desktop, yeah, it's a bit more friction. You've got to reach for your device, take it off the charger, open it with your face, like go to the app, like do the whole thing. So it's a bit more of a blocker there. So that was taken into account, but also, yeah, the data was a bit murky because we couldn't necessarily get all of, the data, especially when it depends on, different operating systems, for example, or browsers, right? We can't get the data. We weren't able to obtain data from Safari, for example. So again, we went back to our team, and they deliberated, and we deliberated. And we decided, okay, we're going to go with the It's Me Only version. Now, you may be thinking, what the fuck? Like, you did an A/B test and you're like changing your strategy completely. Well, actually, yeah, it sounds hasty, it sounds crazy. But there are actually a number of reasons that we did it like this. The first one, as I mentioned before, yeah, we saw really poor performance issues. But also, when it came to yeah, having one identification method, well, that's a lot less maintenance than having 3, right? So upkeep became simpler, became more efficient. In addition to that, we'd have more flexibility. So given that that step is right in the middle of the end-to-end journey, we could already take out, or rather we could already have direct impact there, because it's really the primary element linking, again, the upper funnel and the lower funnel. And by removing the team in Luxembourg that were actually accountable for this, we could really take back our full accountability and control over this, and design and implement designs and optimize faster. Also, again, going back to the kind of 80-20 core value of the redesign, yeah, we designed it again for the majority. So we were minimalizing friction there. With the other identification methods, there was a lot more, even higher drop-off. And so that was also aligning with this kind of growing trend of digital adoption, let's say. So we're really responding to the behavior, the trends from our users that we saw within our analysis as well. And of course, linking it back to data, because this is a presentation really about data, whether you like it or not. Actually doing this, we could integrate our tools. So we could really have, yeah, we could integrate Content Square, we could go full swing into Adobe Analytics, Splunk as well, what we also use. And this would give us a much more rich understanding of user behavior, and would also help us to understand and, again, improve the conversion, which, if you remember, this was the initial message from our team.
All right, so our team came to us and said, Nino and Thomas, please refine the design and let's reach 100% of conversion.
So we get to Act 2. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
All right, so Thomas has explained, now we have a design, it's in production, and we have data. So what did we do? We went to look at the data. So we used zoning. So I'm not sure if you guys are quite familiar with Content Square. We'll not go too much into the details. But basically, it's a tool that helps us understand where do people click, where do they go, what do they hover on, etc. So I'll describe the screen a little bit, because I think it might be a bit far for you, and then I want you to think about this. So we have a screen. It's an identification step. We have a cart above. We have an It's Me logo. We have the title. We have redirection to say, hey, do you want to use your ID card, come to a shop, or contact us? Then we have the main CTA, and then we have some more additional legal mumbo-jumbo. So now looking at you, what do you guys think the analysis showed? What were people doing on this step? Clicking on logo, clicking on CTA, okay. Anything else for behavior? The links? So yeah, these ones. Okay, trying to find another way to connect. So when we looked at the analysis, we actually saw that this is the exposure rate, so how much people, like how much elements are seen on the screen versus the click rates. So some of you are correct. We see quite a high number of clicks on the redirection to the contact. We see a bit of clicks on the logo, but not that much. A lot of clicks on the card, actually, but this is quite expected. It's the first moment that they really can see the card, and they have to be sure that we didn't add anything that they didn't want to it. But we noticed the main clicks on the CTA, really 29% on desktop, 23% on mobile. We didn't have anything to compare it to, so we were not really sure, but obviously this seems very low. So we don't really know what's the ceiling that we can reach, but obviously too low. So when we look at the exposure rate, we actually have a bit of an idea why. We see that it's not 100%, so that means not 100% of people who come to this screen actually see the main CTA. So quite a big problem for us. Now, once you have these types of insights, what do you do with them? How do you translate them into the designs? Well, not enough clicks or not enough visibility on the main CTA, a bit higher. On mobile, We made it sticky, of course. It's quite easy to access, right? Your thumbs are on the bottom. There was too much clicks on the help and contact. Well, let's put the help and contact a bit below. Let's make it a bit less obvious. Let's hope that maybe it kind of induces people into not going. And we also made the title a bit shorter and more straight to the point. Now, you probably see me coming. What do you think? Do you think this new solution, the one that I just presented, converted better? Show your hand if you think so. Okay, a bit better than before.
Okay, so what did the data reveal? Well, okay, yeah, kind of. It was kind of better, but not really. What we saw is actually, yeah, the main CTA had nearly 100% exposure rate on desktop, so we were getting close to that. And of course, with the sticky, we were doing a lot better there. We also saw actually an improved click rate, right? This is really the percentage of sessions with a click on the specific zone, as you can see there. So of course, the sticky button really helped with that. Yeah, we saw really a noticeable increase, of course, on all the CTAs. However, what we did see, and more interestingly, is that, yeah, we saw some kind of strange behavior, right? So mainly some quite interesting distraction points. So someone said about clicking on the logo,
yeah.
You were 100% spot on, because, yeah, what we saw is, yeah, frequent clicks, or we can call them as rage clicks, maybe, all over the It's Me logo there. We also saw, even though, yeah, we moved, as Nino said, moved the help and contact a little bit further down to be a little bit less visible, we also saw that it was drawing significant attention. So in conclusion, while we actually improved the visibility, we were still dividing the user's attention, right? So they were still potentially clicking on the logo rather than clicking on the main CTA, so really the main action. So we were not fulfilling the need here to really streamline the focus to the main CTA. So again, we went back to our team, and we went back with that feedback, and we strategized together on a way forward. And they came back to us with another message.
Nino and Thomas, please refine the design even further, and let's reach our 100% conversion target.
I haven't heard that one before. Yeah, so again, with the valued support of our POs and the rest of our team, we continue to iterate a bit on the design and implement those changes as quickly as possible. So we didn't feel the need to do any A/B testing here. We were pretty confident enough to proceed with those design changes based on the data that we'd had from Content Square and Adobe. And so what we did is we moved, of course, as you can see, so that was the initial design, and this is the new design. We removed the It's Me logo, right, to again direct the focus to the main CTA here, so they identify with It's Me CTA. We also added a sticky button on desktop, which I haven't shown here, but we added a sticky button again to funnel really that focus and ensure that we're reaching the 100% click rate there. What we also did is we reviewed the copy. We also worked quite collaboratively with a copywriter as well, with UX writer, sorry. And yeah, we tried to think a bit more in the mind of the user, again, do some tests. And we changed the main CTA from confirm with It's Me to identify with It's Me. So moving away from this kind of definitive action that is confirming something, you confirm an order, you confirm something that sounds a bit more definitive, but going rather with the primary action of the step, right? So the identification element. So you're identifying, you're still not, you're still not signing with your blood, right? You're not confirming. It's okay. You're just identifying with It's Me. You can also turn back at any point if you want. So that's some of the primary actions that we did here. So what you see, here with the desktop version, you also see the sticky button there. So these are the kind of, the global design decisions that we, design updates that we made here as well. So again, question to you, the audience. Do you think the new solution converted better? Better?
Okay, a bit more than before. I see some improvements.
Okay. Come on, guys. Have faith.
Well, yes, but only kind of, yeah. By now you have gotten a bit what the story was about. We see really high click rate now on the main CTA, both in mobile and desktop. Mobile even higher than 50%. I'm not showing the exposure rate here because all of our most important elements were at 100%. And we actually noticed that whatever we do with help and contact, the rate stays quite stable. So something necessary, something useful. Now, what we can see with all of these changes and the changes in all of the numbers as well is that clearly the design had been improved, right? There was less friction, better usability, but it's not really a success because this was not actually getting translated into actual conversion. That means that the sales were not getting higher. That means that people were not identifying more. Now, yeah, we're really racking our brains around this, like why is this so? And we have one element of answer. Basically, I don't know how it is for you or what type of projects you work on, but we work in sales, and we see sales are quite seasonal. So during the week, different days of the week, we don't have the same sales. We have more in certain days. I'm not sure I'm supposed to say which ones. So, but it's also the same during the full year. So for instance, during summer, I think I can say, you can imagine, of course, the sales are a bit lower. And here we were in a low sale moment, let's say. So any of the changes that we were doing, even if maybe they were actually improving conversion, we were not seeing it really translated because the sales were a bit maybe lower, so it was not really compensating exactly. So that's how we were, a bit desperate. At that point, you guys might be thinking, these two, they really suck at their job. And that's how we were feeling. Personally, I was a bit tired with this topic. I felt like we had thrown everything at the wall to see what was going to stick, and nothing really was. We had even proposed some more improvements that had actually more technical impact, so you can imagine these were shut down so quickly. So we actually moved on and we worked on other topics because, as we said, we were redesigning, redeveloping everything. Of course, we had other increments to work on.
So then we get to Act 3, and just to make it clear, yeah, we were pretty desperation here, so we also took extended holiday because, just wasn't really going anywhere. But yeah, so Act 3, do or do not, there is no try.
All right, as stakeholders, however, they really had faith in us, and they came back to us one more time with another challenge.
Nino and Thomas, please refine the design even further, and let's reach 100% conversion target rate. Sorry.
So of course, at that point, we're like, oh my God, not again. Because you see, we're getting tired, but they're not. So what did we do? We're like, we've tried everything. Let's go back to the basics, right? Like, let's take a big step back. Let's go look at dark patterns, which we did not use. Let's go look at manipulation techniques, which we did use. We'll show you that. Let's look about conversion rate optimization, growth design, just let's go back to the basics, basically. So what we had done before, it was removing, right? Removing as much as we can from the screen. And we actually came to this. So as you see, before we were refining, and then we decided a bit again to change the approach. Now, if I explain a bit the design, you still see a card, you still see a title. It's a bit more conversational. How would you like to identify? We have a bit of reassurance. We take your security seriously, your Proximus, so please identify to safely proceed. But the biggest change, we don't have one option anymore, we have two. Now you may be wondering, okay, but you guys said you were only proceeding with It's Me, so then what is the second option? Well, it's identify in a shop. Now, you guys are ordering online. Why would you have a second option that is identify in a shop? Who would go online and say, yeah, actually, I want to verify my identity in a shop? Well, it's exactly why it's there. It's a decoy option. It's made not to be interesting. It's made so that the other option actually looks a bit better. So it's there, and it's here to say, yeah, the other one is much better. You should choose the other one. So that's the first, let's say, manipulation or conversion technique we used, a decoy. Second one, you can see it in blue. It's called Fast and Easy. It's a patch. Basically, we're saying out loud what people can think. So we're just really trying to show that it's me. You guys probably know it. You use it. It's fast and it's easy. But now it's in your face. You cannot ignore it. And then the last thing we use, it's a nudge. It's actually something we use all around in our checkouts. It's pre-selected, right? So it's pre-selected, the button is identify with it's me. What do you have to do? Nothing, you click on identify with it's me, and that's it. So now, do you think that this solution converted better? Yes? I see less hands than before, so I'm not going to take this personally, but a little bit. It did.
It did.
So we put this in production. We waited a couple of weeks, and we actually we saw 15% increase on conversion on that step, and 17% on the overall conversion. So that means that people who saw that step actually went much further. They identified, and then they tended to order more. So it was a success we were not expecting. We were just looking to impact the conversion, not necessarily at this step, but not necessarily the overall conversion. So it was quite a good surprise.
And full disclaimer, you're actually the first audience to hear this, because when we first did this, we didn't yet have full insights. So, voilà.
We had some very early results that were positive. But yeah. So our takeaway, of course, is to learn to tame your dragon and appreciate it, but more seriously.
Yeah. Well, some personal learnings first. Well, okay, we've talked about data-driven decisions. We talked about reducing friction, and that's really where we found, okay, there's really a lot of value in this, right? So data can really help pinpoint different actions, but it doesn't necessarily lead always to what you're setting out to do, right? It doesn't always, in this case, for example, it didn't lead to immediate conversion. But it did consistently help us identify and reduce user friction, right? So we really took it as a kind of holistic approach to the redesign of this step, but also to allow it to go further, right? Using data to drive decisions, it's not, about improving for the quick wins necessarily. It's about improving the overall experience. So again, taking a more holistic approach. And I think also Nino and I were both pretty happy, and despite the desperation, there was also a lot of joy. We got to collaborate quite a bit on this. And work in a kind of continuous optimization, iteration manner, which is not, as maybe some of you know, working in a big company is not always the way, even though that's the way that it's talked about when we do UX and we do product design and we iterate, and well, actually it's kind of BS. We don't necessarily get to do that, right? We design something, we put it in production, and we move on to the next thing. But actually here, we really got to do the opposite. We really got to do that. We really got to go into the narrative. Okay, we get to iterate. We get to work consistently, and we get to learn and continue learning from that. So, and that's of course what we'll continue to do. But then for some more
but maybe a point. That's something that we've kept doing on other topics as well. That's really a culture that has a bit of a culture shift that has happened in our team as well. And hopefully that's something that we can also spread like a virus to other teams. Okay, that was our takeaways, but of course, what should you, the audience, take away from this? You probably know this, every design is actually a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis on what's the best, clearest options for the user, what is the user trying to do. It's a hypothesis about, what are people looking for, really. So data, of course, you guys probably do a lot of user testing, so qualitative data, but also quantitative data really helps validate or invalidate assumptions. We had tested all of the steps of the It's Me design, we had tested in user testing. They were performing totally fine in qualitative. So you see here that the quanti actually helps bring a bit more nuance to what we were doing. As you can see, we also kept tinkering a lot. So we made really minor changes. We changed the copy, we removed the logo, we changed the positioning of the button. And it's fine to do this. It actually helps a lot. And at some point you saw, like, where we were successful is we were able to say, okay, this is enough. We have to be more pragmatic. Let's try something new. So sometimes, of course, you need to go back to the basics. I think that comes to the last step. Our job as a designer is never done. You can improve a design as we did. You can improve its usability. You can reduce frictions. And once it's in production, you can always improve what you're doing.
Hello.
Nino, Thomas, that was a very insightful talk. I can say on behalf of everyone, I think a lot of us, we would dream to be working in such a data-led way, most of us just get to the average usability test. And we still have a couple of minutes for questions, so feel free to come up with them. But maybe a question to you. I found it interesting you said that it debunked some of the things you found in qualitative testing. So in your opinion, like, what are the best cases of how to combine data-led design with the qualitative stuff we know?
Oh, that's a good one. Actually, more and more, I think that we can put any design in production, right? Like, we're even like today, you guys were testing something.
Yeah.
And I knew in testing in qualitative testing, it was not gonna perform well. Basically, we're putting a pop-up in the face of people and we expect a lot of people to close it. But what you see in usability testing, of course, it's qualitative, it's not quantitative. There are some patterns that work that have been tested throughout websites, through millions and millions of people. And actually, when you put them, like, it creates friction in the experience, but when you put them in production, you actually see the numbers are saying that maybe it's a bit of friction, but actually your goal is achieved, your goal as a company, but also the goal of the user. So I think in some cases you also have, like, you get some learnings. Of course, sometimes you expect them, but you have to know when to push back on the results of usability testing to know, okay, I know my gut feeling, I know UX pretty well, I've seen things in production, and if it's really bad in production, we'll remove it, of course. But you can just go for it and see what the numbers say, especially if it's not that risky, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit about taking those risks, right? A dear colleague of ours always says, what is it? Proof in the pudding is the eating. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Yep. I think that's how he says it. And that we can apply that to design as well, right? Of course, when we do usability testing, which of course, we're privileged that we get to do that a lot. I know it's not the case for maybe a lot of you. But indeed, it's only part of the story, right? You're creating an environment. It's not. There are different variables, right? So maybe it's an off day for someone, maybe it's a good day for someone, maybe they're more attentive, maybe they had a good night's sleep. They're not necessarily seeing things. They're sometimes seeing more things than they usually would. So there are variables that you have to take into consideration as well. And actually, that's where I think data, for example, also is something that can be a bit more grounding. I mean, actually, more it's the use of both. Actually, they complement one another, right? I think that's really important within our work to have both as a kind of outlet for testing.
I'd say if we only relied on usability testing, we would be the best designers in the world. Oftentimes, right, you improve your design through usability testing, but as you mentioned, the conditions are a bit set. The person is not between their little child, baby, and then something on the pot that needs to cook. So of course, it's a lot more mastered. They have much more time to really understand what's on the screen and so on. And data actually helps more translate the real conditions of the outside world into how they interact with your design. Yeah. So really complementary. I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Yes.
The goal is to get more customers using Proximus. At first, you had people logging in with It's Me, but also with passport or identity.
Yeah.
So by deleting the option of the identity, try to get more conversion, because more people just click on the single button. But in the end, do you got more customers or have you lost customers?
I don't think that's an answer we can easily answer because market is shifting as we talked about seasonality. But if your question is it worth it and do we stand by that decision, 100%. As Thomas mentioned, this has a lot simplified our full development process. We have much more data and we knew what was the trade-off and we knew that some of these people were identifying with passports and IDs. Some of them have It's Me, some don't. And that's why we offered also alternatives for them.
And I think that's a really good point that you make. It's, again, we're not thinking about the quick win necessarily, right? Even though that was the message from our stakeholders, we actually took a more holistic approach to it, like, yeah, kind of radically changing the identification security strategy, right? To really take a bit more control of that step being right in the middle, really that bridge again. That was also a way for us to, yeah, to pinpoint, okay, what are the things that are working within our way of working, right?
Yeah.
To being dependent on another team outside that we have no interaction with, we've never even met, and them actually not even being privy to what we're doing, mostly on a day-to-day, was really a blocking factor. So it really was like a real shift, let's say, in our, yeah, in the strategy and the way of working, I think. And
I think to build upon this, like you said, we're indeed more autonomous, but actually this was costing a lot of money. So at some point you balanced having less customers, but you're spending also less money on maintenance and so on, on a quite long time period. So that's part of the, I think we didn't have these types of discussions before.
No.
So yeah, it was pretty much the first time we're like, okay, let's see, maybe less sales, but more, yeah, more maintainability in the end.
You also had a question.
Hello. Hello. Okay, well, it's fine. So very interesting. I actually had a question on the time you had to do this, because you say, okay, so we did this and that, but I wonder if there was a moment of like rush, like, okay, we really need to get this done at this moment. Our stakeholders don't, like they're a bit, okay, well, but push a bit. So I was wondering on how much time you actually had to do all this.
I mean, so we started this like really looking fully, like doing that first deep dive analysis, I would say. So we started really the redesign around summer of 2023, I want to say.
A bit earlier, I think it was the
Earlier,
spring.
indeed. Yeah, so the spring. And we actually didn't really start looking at this step until the following year. So maybe, yeah, maybe late that year, December, sorry, and then really deep diving into it in January, February 2024. So we had a bit of time, right? But as soon as we started doing that analysis, then things started to really speed up. Of course, as Nino mentioned, we were working like, this is one of the increments, as we call it, one of the projects that we work on. We had additional other features that we were working on through the end-to-end journey. So we weren't able to focus 100% on this. But again, we used data. We continued to test, usability tests as well, to keep it kind of fresh on the radar. It was always like part of our kind of user sprint goals, let's say. And we put that also as for ourselves, even when it wasn't necessarily the case, and we'd already put something into production, we made a point to go and check the data and keep looking at it.
Actually, I think indeed the first design took a bit more time. Then when we realized it was not performing as much as we expected, we dedicated a lot more time. I think so we had a couple of rounds of iteration. Every time, okay, like the analysis and the update of the design, they don't take long, right? What's taking a bit more time is getting into a release and whatever. But of course, this was priority. And then of course, so I think in like, of course, less than 2 weeks, we had an updated design. I think it was going into production as soon as possible. Then we did the same thing. And then for the last redesign, at some point they were like, yeah, let's start up on it. And then I cried a bit, and I spent a day and a half, and then design was like 4 hours. It's not like revolutionary. So in the end, you see like this goes pretty fast. But of course, we have a lot of validation points. We present that to a lot of stakeholders. So the last design, I think we presented like 3 times in the same week to different people to get it shipped as soon as possible. Yeah. So design itself, I think, very quick. I think the team was also very dedicated to putting that in production as soon as possible. So I don't think I've seen releases that quick in Proximus ever. No. Probably not anymore, but
it's a bit like what you were saying, Anais, right? Like a lot of our job is like really like buy-in, it's presenting, it's making sure that everyone is like on the same page, aligned, and going forward with the same vision, right? And that truly that resonates here, right? That was really part of the part of the project, let's say. So yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna have a break. We just want to make sure everyone has enough time. But if you have any questions for Nino and Thomas, they're certainly around here.
And feel free to connect with us, of course.
Get in touch.
Okay,
go ahead.
Thank you.
All right. So everyone, I would say have some beers. Lunch, dinner has arrived.
Oh, right.
And
Nice.
we'll see you
UXBeers,
next
yeah.
at 2015. All right.
Yeah, some help.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
live again. I think. Ralph, are we live? Good. And let's go for the second talk. So thank you, Ricardo, for making us learn about the lesson for Infrabel in building user-centric design in large-scale enterprise. I personally work in a large-scale enterprise, so I'm quite curious about what you will explain, and I think it can be valuable for my work. But maybe some of you also here work in large-scale enterprise. So I leave you the floor. Thank you.
So welcome back. I'm a bit bummed that I don't have a buddy next to me if I look at the previous presentation, but I think it will go perfectly. So I will be sharing indeed how to make UX meta, more specifically, lessons learned from Infrabel in building user-centric design in large-scale enterprises. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but we'll get through it. What does it feel like to do UX in large-scale enterprises? Very concretely, it feels like half the time I'm designing and the other half explaining why these designs are not decorations. But we'll get to that. First, I would like to introduce myself. So I don't know, a couple of people know. My name is Ricardo. I'm a UX design consultant at CPTW. I have a background in communications and graphic design. I've been doing UX for a couple of years right now. And mostly I've been dropped into an environment that is large, complicated, sometimes messy, but that's what I also like to do. At the moment, I'm based in Brussels at Infrabel, which is the beast we are trying to tame. But a bit more concretely, what is Infrabel? Infrabel, for you who don't know, is Belgium's national railway infrastructure manager. So basically it means they build, they manage, and they maintain the tracks, the signal posts, tunnels, bridges, and IT systems, everything to do with the railway in Belgium in general. Infrabel is the boss, I would say. Infrabel is about 10,000 employees, 3,602 kilometers of railway tracks in Belgium. It's very specific. Last year they had 245 million passengers going through the network, as well as for 55 million tons of merchandise. So it's quite an important enterprise. Another interesting figure is 1,200 of daily trains pass through the north-south junction. I don't know if you guys know, but in Brussels, the north-south junction starts at Brussels South, which is about 23 tracks. It has to go to Brussels North, which is about 17 tracks, but it goes through all 6 tracks. So there's like a real bottleneck in Belgium. And apparently 1,200 trains a day have to go through that bottleneck. So it's quite a management to put the least out of it. And lastly, there's an infinity amount of internal applications in Infrabel. At least that's what it feels like. And I will also show you why. This is an architecture of Infrabel. All of these squares are different tools, databases, which ideally we are tasked to redesign and to get on one line. But what is it like doing UX at Infrabel, and specifically in large legacy organizations? You might recognize some of these for your project. First of all, UX is seen as a nice to have as opposed to a must have. Business needs are more important than user needs. We have businesses who think they're doing agile, but actually it's waterfall still. So waterfall is very much alive, but just with the side of bureaucracy. And the digital maturity throughout the different teams, we notice, is not consistent. So it means that some teams are more digital mature, other teams are less. So there's very much a silo throughout Infrabel, which we also kind of have to break through. So we had a choice. Either we complain or we start changing. And so we put in a framework, we put in a game plan, which is our mission at Infrabel, the UX mission, which is we divided it into 4 pillars. There's quite a lot of text, but I'll go through it quickly. The first is setting up a design system, so everything is at least consistent, look-wise, feel-wise. The second is getting UX involved from the very beginning, so in a user-centric way, doing everything correct from the beginning. The third is defining governance, which means basically explaining how UX should be done within Infrabel. And the fourth, which is the last, and I think one of the most important, is to launch a user experience center. So basically centralize all the UX knowledge, people, as well as tools. So there's really a center that everyone can go to, as opposed to that everything is scattered around the whole enterprise. It's not very revolutionary indeed, but it is very needed. What we noticed though is we weren't going to change minds just by saying it. We needed to go back to the essence, so it's being credible. That's the only way that we were going to motivate and really show the people, the stakeholders, that UX actually matters. So to understand a bit of where we had to come from, so this is UX culture before we actually arrived, you'll see that UX was driven by developers with no user needs in mind. There was no UX standards at all. There was also no attention to web accessibility guidelines. We noticed when we looked at the tools ongoing that it's a mix between outdated tools that looked like it was built in 2004, as well as some modern tools that weren't really aligned when it comes to user experience. We also noticed that the interfaces that were designed by the development reflected the system logic as opposed to the questions that the user has, the tasks that the user has, and the needs. And I think I'm referring back to that architecture. If that's complex, think about how complex one specific tool can also be. So voila. And the last is there was no user research or testing or any kind of feedback loops really done within Infrabel. So it was very important for us also to instate that. To give you more of a visual example of what the tools look like, this is an example called Bookin. It's an application that's used to request train paths. As you can see, this is the home page, but it's a redundant page. You can't do anything on this home page. You would think that this is a button. Think again, it's just a title. So you can't do anything except for accessing the menu. So why land on it? We don't know. If you dive a bit deeper, you see it jumps all of a sudden. This is what a table looks like. At first glance, you say, it's just a table, but we can already see some accessibility issues with the red on the blue. All of these icons on the left are icons, correct, but they're also buttons that lead to different places and that have different actions. And the user doesn't know what those buttons do unless you maybe hover over that for 2 seconds, and maybe you can figure out if I click on this, then it will open that application. So as you can see, not the best user experience. Another great example is called EPP Web Portal. This is an example I would like to think that development thought they were being quite creative. As you can see, you have 2 main tools, and then you have this beautiful mosaic. This mosaic shows you all the different locations in Belgium. This is just all different buttons that lead to a different location doing the same thing. So in essence, you have 63 buttons already on this page. Not the best navigation. And lastly, we have a tool called Traffic Info. This tool was, in essence, Traffic Info is just to have more information on the traffic on the net. But as you can see, the brand guidelines, I don't know if you know Infrabel. Infrabel is very blue. Yellow is not part of their brand guideline, but yet they reinstated that. It is an application that is made for mobile. It's not really mobile friendly. It's quite small. These buttons are not according to web accessibility guidelines, so there's also an issue there. And of contrasts, it's made for mobile, but it could definitely be better. And so for us, what was important is to start with the credibility and not the creativity. We weren't going to wow the people by being creative. We really had to show how UX can solve problems. And so once we accepted that we weren't going to make beautiful designs, UI designs to push through, or we weren't going to make flashy animations, we got to be practical and very practical without overlooking the necessary steps. And so the toolkit that we had for mind, it's the steps that we always do for new projects, is obviously implementing a design system, creating a design system, but once we have that design system, also using that with every single application, so we create consistency throughout all those infinity amount of applications. What was also important for us is to start with the design workshop before we actually start designing. So having a design sprint together with the stakeholders to figure out who the tool is for, the personas, the user journeys, but also what the vision of the product should be. Also going a step back, looking at the tool, how it is today, and figuring out, is there something that works? Is there something that doesn't work? Are there features that are missing? What needs to be changed? What doesn't need to be changed? Really going into that conversation with the stakeholders before we actually start doing any designs. Then we do the first wireframes, and actually quite fast we go back to the stakeholders to have co-creation. So we have it in design critiques. You can also see it a bit as co-creation, but we show the first instance of wireframes to the stakeholders to ask them, okay, is this how you envisioned it? Are we missing something? Does this work for you? Really get them on board of contributing to the product, which will help for the internal advocacy, but I'll get there. The next step is really testing those tools with real users. I must admit, at Infrabel, we're still not there 100%. We are starting to test, but they're very picky with who we can test with, which is not the essence of having a user test, but we'll take it, and then hopefully we can improve on that. But if we do all of these 4 steps correctly and properly before, we create advocates of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders start seeing UX as credible, they start seeing how UX can solve problems, and they hopefully see that it's much better after we design it than before design it. And that's important because these stakeholders start advocating UX to different stakeholders on different projects, and so they start coming to us with the question of, okay, can UX be included on this project as well in the redesign? And lastly, service design. It's not something that we really focus on, but it's definitely something that we have to do. And again, taking a step back to that architecture, it's a mess. Sometimes we have to figure out, okay, this tool, is it part of a bigger journey? So taking a step back, looking holistically, if it's part of a bigger journey, it kind of has to follow the same style. So service design is always part of it. I would first like to show you the design system that we actually managed to create. And then I can also show you how we use the design system to create, for instance, a new design. And then I will go on with the rest of the presentation. But normally I have linked it. Let me see. Voila. So this is our design system. This is the cover. On the left, you can see that it's divided all in different categories. So for instance, if you go to foundation, you'll see for instance, the grid system, the colors, typography, everything is documented very thoroughly, also in the light version and the dark version, to see the difference. For typography and for grids, it's not really that important, but if you come to the components, it becomes really important to see, okay, this is what the component looks in the light version, this is what the component looks in the dark version. And then, as you can see, we have all different pages for buttons, for form elements, for navigation. But if you, for example, take form elements, you would see, you can see you've got counters, you've got date pickers. On the left, we have the component and then the documentation. More specifically, what it looks like, the best practices, the different states of that component. So we really document everything thoroughly, how it works, but also, for instance, the anatomy, the spacing, as well as variations, and more importantly, the accessibility. So everything has to be documented, also for development, because this gets developed into a design system website, which the development can then take those components, they have the code already, start implementing it. So we really work on component base. How would that look like if you make a new screen? So I've kind of prepared at least the basis of a screen to not waste too much time, but I'm going to change the background quickly so you guys can see it up. So as you can see, the screen, we have two components already. We've got the left component, which is the side navigation, and we got the component at the bottom, which is a footer. But we can also add new things. I have to see quickly, because voila, say we add a title. I can start by welcome, John. Maybe, I don't think I wrote John correctly, but having a small up. Then we can say, okay, this is also all part of the design system typography. It's an H1, so we added I wrote Japan. Voila. We can add, for instance, wait. Let's see. Oh, I've said it differently. I forgot the shortcut, but I think it's because I'm looking at it. But either way, I think we can just add it this way. Search. There we go. So we can add a search of, for instance, this. We can make it full width. I feel like an old guy right now. And then we can also add more and more things. So if we add another one, for instance, a table, then we more or less on a home page that could exist. Voila, table. We can add that underneath it. And then this will also make full width. And so what the design system allows you to do is we can go into the actual component, we can customize it where needed, we can delete things, we can change, for instance, this column. We actually want it to be a content column, so we can change that into a content column. In this column right here, we actually don't want to use all of these illustrations. We don't want it, so we take off the illustrations, and it's very easy to make designs because we spend so much time on building that design system in general. And then what you can also do, for instance, is look if we expand it, how it will react because it's responsive. So that's a bit of the product of having a full design system that actually Nicolas has really painstakingly helped build, but it helps us in the long run. So now that we saw a bit of the design system, what was more important, and also because it's already it has a firm basis ground, it's important to start with some pilot projects. So the pilot projects aren't difficult projects, but they're projects to really showcase what the design system can do, and more important, what a UX team on those projects can also contribute. So the first project, one of the first pilot projects was TMS Web. TMS stands for Traffic Management System. Basically, it's just an application that, if I'm not mistaken, the signal posts have to can go on to figure out how the trains drive. This looks super complex, but this whole graph actually comes from a different system. So designing this tool wasn't that complex if you don't have to design the actual graph. I could explain this graph, but I don't think you guys are that interested in it. The next tool is ADL. Basically, ADL is a tool to give speed advice to train drivers, which means that when before a train driver leaves, they have to keep their train number, and then the whole screen becomes one big black screen with a very big, this is how much you are allowed to drive. It's very simple. Why do they do this? One is to avoid any confrontation, and two is to save on energy. But voilà, you can already see how it more or less looks like. The issue now with scaling it up to all the different applications possible at Infrabuild. So all of these white tags are different applications. This is an example of applications that are part of the customer solution. Next to customer solution, we also have traffic safety solutions, real-time traffic management, as well as capacity management. So as you can see, quite a lot of applications. I think we are busy with or have finished around 10, more or less. But it's just to show you how extensively the ecosystem is. We also needed a way to actually more or less show our progress. So this UX maturity framework of Nielsen Norman Group actually really helps with that. For you who don't know, the 6 stages of the UX maturity basically tells you how mature the organization is in UX user experience. It's not that difficult, but it starts, it has 6 stages, 6 steps. It starts with UX being absent, then step 2 is limited, step 3 is UX being emergent, 4 is when UX is quite structured, the 5th is when UX is integrated, and by the 6th when UX is user-driven. As you can read, dedication to UX at all levels, which results in exceptional user-centered design outcomes. Right now, we believe that we are, well, be confident, we are in number 4, which is structured. UX is quite structured. We aim to obviously be 6. We already think that we are with a couple of feet in number 5, integrated, but I think a key step there is from the moment UX becomes an integrated part in the UX governance, and UX is a mandatory step, then we would really consider it to be integrated. And I think Alexander is really busy trying to figure out how we can get that mandatory step implemented. Now, of course, it's not all smooth sailing. Sometimes it feels like we are walking through mud. An example, what I call the wall of blockers. These are quotes that we heard in the past. Sadly enough, we sometimes hear today as well. Not today, but these days. One of them is, we've already done it this way, so why should we change? Or the users are used to doing it the old way, so why change? Another one is UX UI is going to slow us down. We want to keep it the same, we just want to redesign. Okay. Another one, it doesn't need to be responsive, so they say our users, they only use desktop, so no need to make tablet, no need to make mobile. Okay. One of my favorites is development has already started, or the backend has already been developed, so now you have to redesign it, but keep in mind the backend has been developed and we can't change it. And also this one is a bit of a pain, in my heart at least. Figma designs are more of a guideline, which I found irritating because we go through the whole workshops with the stakeholders, we make sure that they are on board. We have all those wireframes, all those UI designs approved by business, and then development says, it's a bit difficult that, but we can change it, but it's better for the users. Figma, it's more of a guideline anyway. So it caused real tensions, and these are some other tensions as well, but our job is to actually obviously circumvent those and go into conversations to show how UX contributes as opposed to, I don't know, what they think make it worse. But these are some tensions that also exist. So the teams have different processes because it's very siloed. It could also mean that different teams have different IT systems or different development code languages, or they work on an IT system that is a version before or version after. Makes it difficult to implement a structured delivery. There are some key roles that are missing, again, going back to the fact that they like to think of themselves as being agile. Key roles like product owner, business analyst, tech analysts, sometimes if they are missing, it makes our job just a bit more difficult. We have to figure out who to speak to that actually can make decisions. If analysts are not there, those analysis sometimes fall on our plates to do next to design work, so it makes it a bit of a real tension. There's slow delivery, there's also resistance to change culturally. I'm not going to go deeper into that. And then the two last ones are development-wise, so often we see, not often, sometimes we see that the development team is already staffed before the scoping has been done, which means that the development team is waiting for designs, and because designs aren't done, they have to start somewhere, so they start working on the back end. And so in parallel, the backend is being developed, and when our designs are done, they say, but it's not correct anymore because the backend has already been developed. And, yeah. And then every developer also believes they are a UX designer. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Often when they talk to us, they are convinced that their solution is for the better. I know I'm complaining a little bit, but it wasn't all that bad. We actually managed to do quite a lot of things. One of the things we managed to do, which is this slide, is obviously the design system that you guys saw. We built a living design system that is being used in over 10 internal applications and counting. We set up a UX governance with structure and fewer let's just wing it moments. We have a bunch of user tests that work. Some of them were proper, some of them were not that good, but they were all valuable. Then we have users are talked about and being included in business decisions, which is just a big win, I would say. So stakeholders that have worked with us, they see the credibility of UX, and they start taking the user perspective into their business decisions. And the last one is we turned UX into something people ask for as opposed to us pushing it. And what's more, Infrabel has just already started selling solutions to other countries. So it means what we're doing is working. Thank you. This is just an example of what a design sprint looks like. So what we do beforehand, we go through the product vision, just a screenshot, and here we go through the design critique of how the tool looks before, what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be changed, what doesn't need to be changed. But having the conversation beforehand with the stakeholders really helps us when we start designing to do it correctly from the get-go. This is an example of a user test. There's not much else to say about it, I don't think. I blurred the user out of privacy, but voila. But more importantly, the results. So how did this result in applications that we have redesigned? I will show you a couple. The first one is Icarus. As you can see, it looks a lot better, but it doesn't only look better, it actually works better for the users who are wanting to do the tasks that they need to do. By the way, all of these applications I'm going to show are currently in production. So that's good. So this application, Icarus stands for Infrabel Capacity Requests Unified System, I think it was. Anyways, it's a tool used to request a track to park your train on. So say a train comes into the country but only leaves the next day, they need to park it, and there are specific tracks reserved for parking. The issue is if more than one what we call railway enterprises, which is basically the clients of Infrabel, like an NMBS, a SNCB, or a Lineas, if more than one requested, then there becomes a sort of confliction, and they have to go in what we call a coordination procedure, and they have to go into dialogue with each other to figure out who gets it. And so it could be for one track, it could also be for a lot of tracks. And so this specific screenshot is showing that process. Right now they're in step 2 in dialogue. There are no meetings left. The user has to agree to the meeting minutes or not to go into the next step for the assignment to happen. The assignment obviously agreed on what has been said in those meetings. So again, this is just an example. The next one I'm showing in the dark mode because I think our dark mode also looks pretty good. It's called Inca. Inca stands for Infrabel Composition Application. So basically it's an application to make your compositions. Every single train driver in Belgium for the freight trains have to give their composition through to Infrabel. So they have to say exactly how long the train is, how many wagons are on the train, how many, if there are any containers on those wagons, if it's a tank wagon, at which position those wagons are, if there are any dangerous goods on those wagons, which locomotives they are using, how many locomotives they're using, what's the location of those locomotives. So it's quite a lot they have to, give through to Infrabel. And before they've done it in a very complicated way, or they've done it via Excel, we try to get it more interactive so they can actually see the train they are building. So they can see perfectly, okay, this wagon is on place 1, place 2, they can actually build it, which is also important to have an overview because apparently the wagons with the dangerous goods always have to be in the middle. It's important for Infrabel to know exactly which wagons is where, because if there's a crash, for instance, they need to know which substances they are dealing with. Voila, and if obviously they clicked on it, you can see the details of the wagons, the container details with the actual containers on it. But in essence, a much more interactive way of doing this. The next tool is called Traffic Info. Traffic Info is a tool for the candidates to go on to see the status of the stations, the network, the trains. The specific screenshot is for the trains. They can see exactly if the train has deviations, what stations it needs to deviate from, and exactly how many stations it needs to deviate from. For example, at the bottom you can see all the live times, so you can see if it's on time, it's all real time, which is important for the candidates to also have. And lastly, we have DF Mobile. So DF stands for Digiform. Digiform is, correct me if I'm wrong, But it's basically if something goes wrong, if something happens on the network, the train driver has to contact the signal post and have to explain what has gone wrong. Before, they used to do it with pen and paper. They used to have to phone them and have to explain everything. We are trying to digitalize that into obviously an application. So they give in what is going wrong, and they just have to go into dialogue with those signal posts. But it's something specifically for if something goes wrong on the network. What is interesting with this one is that there are guidelines of how designs should be for train drivers, which are more stringent than the general web accessibility guidelines. As you can see, everything is a lot bigger, the buttons are bigger. So it was because of that guideline. I think it was a PDF of 60 pages that Nicolas had to go through, which meant that we actually had to make a parallel design system focused on these guidelines, which are more stringent. But so you can see a train driver can use it as well. So we get a bit to the end, a bit lessons that we took out of it. At the same time, it's key takeaways, I would hope, for you guys. We listed 5. The first is start small, show value early. So you build credibility with pilots and not necessarily with frameworks. The second is speak the language. Business likes to speak about impact and not necessarily about pixels. The third is respect the beast. So if you want to change legacy, you can't do it overnight. You have to work with it, don't work against it. Find a way to change it from the inside and don't go butting heads. The fourth is process is power. So a repeatable UX process is the only way to scale credibility, because you're pushing it through to all the project, and then they can see, okay, it's constant, it's credible, we want it by us as well. And the last one, don't wait for perfect, don't wait for perfection. A good enough wireframe is a good start to go to the stakeholders, to have that discussion with them, what works, what doesn't work, have the co-creation to get them on board. But you don't have to wait until it looks perfect to go to them to have that conversation. Voilà, so that was a bit our story. If you guys have any questions, I would love to hear them.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. I think you encapsulate a lot of struggle we can encounter as UX designer in a larger company. So I'm willing to give the mic to anyone who has a question in the audience. Yes.
First of all, amazing job. Looks good.
Thank you.
You said this is the design system we came up with. You said we, with we, how many people, and how long did it take? And how much could you take from previous maybe design system that you made to then reuse some best patterns in this one?
So the design system is actually built on the PrimeNG way of working, because we have to connect it with development. If we say we, it's a UX team at Infrabel. How many people worked on it at that time? I think it was around 2, 3.
2, 3 at a time, but in total, like more than 6 in total designers working on the design system.
And it's also a living document. So every single application we make, if you notice that a certain what's it called?
Sorry.
Component, needs to be expanded. If it's not included into the design system, we have to add it. And so every single designer that does an application has to go back into the design system and change it. So whether or not it's done, it's definitely not done. It's a living document. But I don't know how long it took, but I think it was the first project that I had to work on, which was the basis of everything, as you can see. Once that is done, you can start implementing it into the rest. I don't know if I answered your question more or less.
Yeah. When did you start working on it?
When did we start working on it?
2 years ago, something like that. And if you want to know, we worked about 4 to 5 months on the design system, if I remember correctly. Something like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was great. I'm curious to learn how you, from the respect the beast standpoint, navigated sometimes the business logic is so complex, and making even one tweak to a flow can mean work from other teams, which in my experience, has always put a huge stopgap in my process with, or my progress with, certain tasks. How, yeah, with such a large enterprise and so many applications, how was that navigated, and how do you successfully make it to the other side of getting, the budget for that? Like, 'cause more people now have to be involved, other teams have to be involved, like all of that.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think it's a struggle that we definitely face even today. If you want to change something that is connecting to applications, or if you want to change how one application views it, but the other application views it differently, then there's a bit of butting heads. They figure out, okay, which one do we go for, which one don't we go for? It's a struggle, to be sure. I would say the solution there is just do as much as you could. You just really have to convince them of why your design would make the most sense. Try to get the other team on board. If it's not necessarily the case, you would have to look at it more of a long-term vision. So sometimes you have to give a bit to receive. And if you give a bit and it ends up obviously reiterating further on that it doesn't work, you can always go back to what you have proposed. But me as a designer, I really like to push for my designs. At Infrabel, I've noticed that it's not always the outcome, and you just have to accept it. Sometimes you have to accept that it's not your design necessarily. They want something else. Your task is to go into that vision that they then have and try to get it as good as possible, even though it's not the vision that you have foresaw, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the really great presentation. Super interesting and super complex, obviously. And I have so many questions, so I'm trying to decide which one is the best one. I know, I'm sorry. I'm renowned for asking questions. So, okay, when it comes to okay, so like for example, you defined like a kind of UX strategy, right? You said at one point that there's like a moment where you're doing like wireframing, like low fidelity wireframing. If I understood correctly from your presentation, that's already at that point where you're having discussions with, you're having technical discussions, like you have technical stakeholders that are, you have analysts, you have potentially developers. Is it at that point that the buy-in that you're seeking buy-in early on at that point, or is it? Are there different rounds of like buy-in, let's say? Like, is that, yeah.
I would say the initial buy-in obviously happens before the project is sold internally, before you actually start the project. Once that you start it, indeed, ideally we go with low fidelity wireframes, but because our design system is so thorough already, we are able to really show quite detailed already what it could look like. We don't fixate on pixels, but we show quite detailed what it could actually look like as opposed to low fidelity. But to answer your questions, we have those workshops indeed with the product owners, we have it with business analysts, there's a technical analyst hopefully on board as well, ahead of a design team, development team, so we have those people in the workshops so we don't miss anything. At the end of the day, it's the product owner that really gives the go, no go. But they give their perspective and they push, obviously, out of my experience, there are product owners that really ask those perspectives as well internally. But the reason we do it is because at the end, those designs need to be approved, and that's the, let's say, the final design that development then has to implement, and that changes afterwards don't really go because business hasn't approved on it. That's why we try to get all the profiles within that workshop to have all those perspectives as well. And it could also be a perspective of development that says, actually, this is technically not really feasible. Maybe we should rethink this, and then we take a step back. We go into co-creation with them to see what would work for development.
Clear, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so at the beginning you showed us how many different internal tools were going on at the same time at Infrabel. I don't know much about trains, but from what I gathered, all the tools that you showed were mostly aimed to professionals of the sector, so maybe technicians, train drivers, I don't know, yeah, the world of trains, but a lot of not especially we are not here. You are not trying to sell to the average nobody. Let's say not nobody, but you know what I mean. So I was wondering how much time and effort did you put into actually trying to figure out what are the needs and expectations of all those different sectors of the same company, because it seems like you were really working to deliver solutions to a lot of different profiles and different users.
Yeah, good question. I think the positive thing that we have is we are overarching different teams, and the teams have done a lot of analysis themselves. Obviously, it's their project, their application, so they have a lot of analysis. We dive deep into that analysis as well. We ask the business analyst who, hopefully, if they've done their job correctly, has all that insights. Sometimes we go into conversation with the end users if it's easy to obtain, if the end users are the people working at Infrabel, for example. But as I stated, Infrabel is quite hesitant for us to talk with users if it comes to their clients. So if it comes to a Lineals, if it comes to an SNCB. The reason for that, I think everyone has different reasons. They're all, for me, excuses. But one of the reasons I heard was because if I would have a conversation with one client, Infrabel has to invite all of the clients, because only one client can have an input. They can only be the ones who have a say. Everyone should have a say then. So then we have to invite all the clients, and there's no, there are no resources for that. So to get to your point, analysis is done by the business analyst, hopefully on the project. We dive deep into that analysis, but it's also the point of having that design sprints workshop beforehand to really figure out, okay, what are the needs, what are the users, what are the personas, what is the user journey, so we don't miss anything. Does it answer your question? No. All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we have also a developer from CBTW at Infrabel. Can you just talk a little bit on how it's helping you advocate for the design system, the way you're working, how is like working with you and.
So we actually have a couple of developers from CBTW at Infrabel, but we work closely with two. So we consider that being the design system team, because we often have to change things in the design system. One of the development is more on Angular, the other one is more stylistic. But they often help also push towards other developers how the design system works, what it should be able to do. If we make new components, it's often those two also the ones that make those components nice, working for the design system, so that the development on the specific projects can just take it and plug it in. But I must admit, those two, being the Angular developer and the stylistic one, more front end, are the two that are really pushing design system towards the other development teams, which is a good collaboration we have with them.
All right. Sorry, we're gonna wrap up on that question. But Ricardo, I guess you're still available for one-to-one question. I'll invite you to still enjoy the buffet and
before we leave, it wouldn't be a UXBeers if I didn't make a little bit of self-promotion. So we do have a newsletter every month that comes out from the product design team. The previous edition was on why service design is key to smooth digital product experiences. Every newsletter tackles product design topics, service design, UX design, conversation design, but you can definitely subscribe, or if you subscribe to our LinkedIn, you'll also see it appear there every month. Voilà.
Thank you.
In case you forgot.